So what is the most important thing that you need to do or be aware of if you want to make a living as a creative individual, or you just want to go out and do what you love for a living? Coming up right after this. All right, good afternoon. This is Lucky Links, continuing with the last set of videos that I've been doing on living a creative life, or how to be more creative, how to do what you love for a living. This seems to be sparking quite a bit with people. People are writing me. People are making comments. It seems to be hitting some people very deeply, and I'm glad, because this is a subject that I think is very important, and I think that being more creative, being more of a creative individual, standing up for yourself, doing what you're passionate about, doing what you came here to do, being who you really are at your core is really important. And right now, more than ever, as things are freezing up and what we have been told traditionally brings security and safety seems to be, it's being challenged right now. And I want people to start to think of what resources that they have inside of themselves as things change and continue to change, instead of going for the cheese that's being held out for you to settle for less. What I'm advocating here and challenging you to do is actually to seek more for yourself. And I was actually going to talk a little bit about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I think maybe that's more appropriate in another video, because I've got something here that is a diagram of what goes on, a process that goes on inside of us. I think it's very important for people to know. But it's a, someone said that, and I hear this all the time. I mean, this is probably the number one thing I hear, besides I got into this bad relationship because I settled, or, you know, the whole idea that I started working very young for whatever, you know, for whatever reason, and then got into it and then had to continue to do that to survive. And those of us who started working young, I'm not going to lie, I was working in a bar when I was 12. When I was 12, the neighborhood bar needed someone, and my parents thought it would be a good idea that I was a bar back. So I started working at 12 years old, and it was not a nice environment for a kid to be working. I saw some things in there that a kid doesn't necessarily need to see, but I'm grateful for it, because what it taught me was I looked at people who didn't seem to be liking what they were doing. They didn't really like their lives. They came to this bar and they got drunk. It was a neighborhood corner bar, and while I'd be stocking the shelves, I'd be filling the beer coolers, I'd be working next door in the store. It was a store and a bar. I would see people, they were depressed, they were drunk, they would pass out and sleep under their cars in the gravel parking lot out back. They would be, you know, I'd be walking past and they'd be like, oh, you know, they'd start like, you need to realize, you know, and I started to and I realized at 12 that age and wisdom don't show up together necessarily. It's not a requirement. I saw so many adults who were miserable, who were stumbling, who were sputtering, who were spitting all over themselves, who were spitting on everyone they were talking about. I saw a really kind of dark side of human, and the whole, well, I work a job I hate all day, I got my house, I got this, and they were there every day, sometimes 8 in the morning, getting drunk and escaping their lives. And you could say, oh, well, it's just a small, it was a lot of people. This was the place where my neighborhood went in Chicago. The neighborhood folks all came to this bar. And then there was another one across the street and another one on the other side, and those were all full. And I saw this very young, and I said, well, what, you know, and I didn't like the job. I hated it. But something awakened inside of me and said, I'm not going to do this. I am not going to do this. I am not going to be like this. And of course, when you go at those things head on, sometimes it causes challenges, and you have to face the very thing that you say, I'm not going to do this. And then sort of everything rises up to go, well, we'll see. And then you have to sort of, you know, work your way through that. But right from the beginning, I saw where this could lead if you didn't follow your passion. If you did, this is where adults were ending up. There were two things that hit me very strongly. One was that I was working in this bar, and the other thing was I was surrounded by cemeteries, and I would go to the cemetery to get away from people and to think and I would go walk around the cemetery, and I would look at all these stones of all these people who had all these lives and all these dreams and all these hopes, and there they were now. And there was never anyone in the cemetery. There was never anyone visiting these people. I was alone in the cemetery all the time, which is one of the reasons why I liked it back then. But it occurred to me that if this is where we all end up, why should we live a life like that I was seeing in my work at the bar? And it occurred to me that there was something definitely off in our values, our priorities, and what we believe is necessary and what we believe is true. And I'm very grateful that I have that experience now, because it started me going, I can't settle. For as tricky as it may have gotten, it showed me how a life could be wasted. And that said, so I understand this starting to work early in this, and being in an environment where you don't like, and then a lot of other people I know, parents got them jobs when they were early. I had a friend in high school, he got a job in his father's place. He worked at it most of his adult life. Never changed. Didn't want to work there. He just sort of fell into it. I understand how this works. And then people get stuck. Maybe that's another topic entirely, but I want to address an idea that people lose confidence about the idea of going after what they love or expressing who they are or being who they really are. And I want to talk about something that actually Tony Robbins, the first time I saw this diagram, actually, I saw him hold up this diagram in an interview, and I saw him show this to people. And then His Holiness Padma-Gapa Rinpoche used it in a piece that he wrote to sort of teach people about the human mind. But I'm going to share it with you now because I think it's really important. There are 4 boxes here, and if you can see, the boxes are, this is belief, okay? So right down here, you got the belief box, okay? And then if you move up here, you got your potential, and then the potential is, it's really, I'm sorry, the way it's, I want to quote it as he quoted it. I know the progression of it, but I want to quote it exactly as he quoted it. So it can be done, it can't be done. So it starts in the belief, it can be done and it can't be done, and then this goes over to action, and then this goes down to results, and then this goes over to belief. Okay, so it goes belief, and then potential, and then action, and then results, and then belief. Okay, so this is why this is really important, and this is why I always say to people, your mind is where it needs to start. Now, in my business, and in my business as a hypnotist, in my business in doing psychic readings for people, in my business in doing charts for people and cosmology, I see every day how everything in your world emanates from the mind. Your body, your experience, your reality around you, your physical, so everything comes from the mind, everything. And I know this from my experience, and in all the years that I've been working with people, I can say from my experience, everything that I've experienced, seen in working with clients reinforces the idea that your body emanates from your mind. And that is the Tibetan Bond belief. But I'm speaking as someone who's a student of it, but who's actually been doing this for a long time, and I can say, yes, your body, your experience, everything comes from your mind. Now, your mind, the mind is usually the thing that people want to tend to last. When everything else has gone wrong and everything's falling apart, and there is nowhere else to turn once they've hit rock bottom, then they want to start saying, well, what's going on with my mind? Maybe there's something I should look at in my mind. When no matter what it is, the mind should be the first place that you look. What are my habits? How am I thinking? How am I talking to myself? What's my belief like? All of these things form the basis of everything else that you experience and will experience. So now the reason that this is important in terms of creativity, creating and doing what you love, and being an individual who, does what you love for a living and creates, you have to start with belief. Belief is everything. So that's right in your mind right there. And the belief will determine the potential. If you say, I can do it or I can't do it, well, then there's your potential. Depending upon what your potential is, I can do it, I can't do it, that influences this part over here, which is your action. So this is one of the ways that those of you who are psychics, you can tell real easily whether or not a person, where their future is going to go, not just by looking at the cards, but by where this fits in. If this is not high, there's no way this is going to come into being. They're going to be going, I can't do it. That means their action is going to be weak. When someone believes that if you've ever noticed, remember when you were a kid and you were playing a game, I guess it depends on the kind of kid you were, but sometimes if it wasn't you, you might have seen someone, when they realized that point they couldn't win, it was like, why do I even bother playing this then? You know, when you realize the game is rigged, you're like, why do I even bother playing? So that's kind of what this is. If you believe you can't win, that's going to influence the action that you take. You're not going to put your full into it. So if you've bought into this whole belief that, well, I have to be part of this system that's set up for me in order for me to survive, well, then you're not going to put any action into actually being creative or developing another part of yourself, because the belief is going to be off, the potential will be down, the action will be weak, and then the results will reflect the action that you took. And then what those results produce will then further reinforce your belief and start the whole cycle over again. Now, this seems like a very small and insignificant little graph, but this is, I cannot tell you how powerful this is and how important it is. And I thank Tony Robbins for putting this out there, and His Holiness Padma Gapa Rinpoche for putting, he actually showed me how this worked in greater potential in relation to the human mind and working with people in hypnosis and therapy and stuff like that. So this is extremely powerful, because if it isn't in the belief, the potential won't be there. The action that's taken won't yield good results, and then the fact that the results weren't good will reinforce the belief as it started. So if you believe you can't, the results that you get will reinforce that you can't. They'll reinforce the belief, and what's happened, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, like a snake swallowing its tail, until boop, it's gone. And then the opposite is true too. Then if the belief is, oh, I can do this, well, you know, when you were a kid, if you were one of those individuals who had a certain talent and you were really good at it, and you had proved over and over and over again that you were really good at it, maybe it was a sport, maybe it was an art or something, and then a challenge was laid down and you're like, oh, I can do this, I've done this before, and then boom, the action that you take is confident, full of force, and right up there where it needs to be. Boom, the results are beautiful, and then you're like, I told you, I knew I could do it. And then the next time it'll be again and again and again. It keeps reinforcing it. So the belief part here is so important. And these are some of the reasons why when people go out there and say, well, you just manifest, they're not really considering how the mind plays into it or anything else. And this is why I've said for so many years on this channel that, you know, there's more to this stuff than just surround yourself with light and everything will be great. There is so much more going on. There's stuff that's going on in your astrology. There's stuff that's going on in the spirit world. There's stuff that's going on in your mind. These are all layered. They all work together, which explains exactly why things don't manifest when people want them to, or they do. If someone says, no, I know this is going to happen. I watched this happen last summer. There was a friend of mine. She's actually a pretty well-known psychic. She's a very well-known psychic, and she wanted to do something, and she said, no, I'm going to manifest this. And actually, I knew she would, because her belief was really strong, which means she says, I can do that. That affected the actions that she took. The actions she took were strong. They were appropriate for what needed to be done, and they produced the results that she wanted, which reinforced the belief that made her say, yes, yeah, I can do it again. And then she does it again and again and again. But people start here from the belief. It's like, okay, I'm going to manifest that true love. Well, they don't like themselves. They have been avoiding their mind. They don't want to examine what's in their mind. They don't want to look at the possibility that maybe they're part of the problem that's going on with romance. They're projecting things on other people. All this stuff is going on. Their belief is shaky to begin with. And then next thing you know, some guy comes along that abuses them, because their belief influenced the potential, which influenced their actions, influenced the results, and then ended up with someone giving them exactly what was right in their belief, that they didn't deserve it, they didn't need it, It wasn't good for them anyway, and there's no way in hell I'm going to manifest what I really want because I don't get that kind of stuff. And whether you realize it or not, it could be in there deep down below the surface. Now, the more, and this is why I start to, like yesterday I said in the other video, I said, they're like, well, what, figure out what's wrong with the idea. Well, maybe you're projecting the wrong part of what you need to put out there for people to understand or see what you do. If you're projecting the, well, I struggled, I don't deserve it, I've struggled for so long, well then all you're doing is you're reinforcing this. This is going to affect your actions and what you put out there. People are going to know. They're going to smell your fear, they're going to smell your desperation, they're going to know that you don't believe in yourself, and that's what you're going to draw back. Because this thing goes over and over and over and over again. And then at some point, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll be like, at this point, you'll be like, why do I even bother? Boom. And now it's even lower. You've given up further. Now go back to that video I did on the 7 fears. And if you put this with it, it will be mind-blowing what you discover. It is extraordinary. And I really encourage you to do that. That one that I did a few days back with the 7 fears, it's like, I don't think people realized how important that stuff is. This stuff that I'm putting out here changed my life forever and took me from a place where I was, I didn't believe any of this could happen to me, to now I'm like, look, I'm going to share with you how you do this because I've seen it work in my lives, I've seen it work in other lives, and this is how you do it. Okay, now, in going along with that, let your mind wander. You can't start from a place of, I see no potential, I see no possibility, I see no belief. What would it look like if you did believe? What would it feel like? How would it feel like in your body? What would it smell like? What would it sound like? And let your mind go through the possibility of really experiencing that particular set of circumstances where your belief would be very strong. From there, it's not far to transfer that experience where you're feeling it in your body. Where do I feel it in my body? That kind of success. What does my heart feel like? What does my stomach feel like when I'm feeling that? What does my head feel like? What do I smell in the air when that's going on? What is the texture I feel in my hands? When everything is working for me and I believe and I know in my heart, how do I feel? Where do I feel that belief in my body? What happens if I take a deep breath and let that feeling grow and expand through my body? And what would happen that would help me know that I do believe in myself? And then at that point, what you're going to do is you're going to see the obvious. You're going to see the thing that you've been missing about yourself that's right there. It has to do with your passion. It has to do with your desire to create. It has to do with whatever skills that you've managed to develop or what skills that you need to develop. But if you're having a problem with the belief part to begin with, then you've got to put yourself in a place where you would believe it. What would it feel like? How would I be? How would I stand? How would I carry myself? How would I sound when I spoke? Let your mind wander and experience these things. Play. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at how you are when you don't believe. Look at how you are when you feel that belief strong in you. Okay, if I were successful, how would I hold myself? How would people respond to me? And what, when you're in that place, do you see that you are obviously missing? What have you been missing? And what do you recognize when you put yourself in that place where you have that experience and you let it grow inside of you? Really let it grow. And walk around with it for a while. Play with it. Talk to people. See what makes it get stronger. See what makes it deflate. When you talk to people, does that feeling deflate? When you talk to certain people, does it get stronger? Well, that's a clue to some of the kinds of people that you need in your life, or who strengthens you and who weakens you. If you don't even want to play this game, then there's other things going on. You're so far from it then. But if you want to play this game and you play with it and you start to feel, how would I feel? What would it smell like in the air? What would I hear? What would it feel like in my legs, my feet, my fingertips? What would be the first step I would take and see the obvious? If the obvious is I'm missing some understanding of how to get my word out to people, well, maybe it's time you take a class or you take learn something that you don't know. When I started all this, I had a problem with marketing. I started studying with a lot of different marketers, and I'm still learning a lot. I'm still learning a lot about that. But I learned enough to be able to shift my life from a place where I was struggling to be able to live a creative life and do what I'm good at, and to help other people do the same. So ask yourself, what is it that you want? What is your goal? What is the outcome? There's another thing I'm going to say that for me was really important in all of this, and that was having Tibetan Bon. I worked with the Tibetan wealth god, Lord Namtos, who changed my life. I had a master who helped me to root out those things in my mind that caused problems in my belief. I did specific mantras relating to Tibetan Bon that actually purified those things and made them fall away. Every day in practice, I would work hard. I would work more and more and more, do some mantra, do some other practices, and all of a sudden, certain habits that I had that had preventing me from being able to believe and that would influence my potential, they started to fall away. But I'm going to say one more thing about all of this. If you're going to try to go from here to here, you have to start small. You have to start with small steps that can bring you success. Because what happens is, if you're having a hard time believing at all, then you have to start with a really small step to go from belief to potential. Okay, today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one chapter done. A chapter is a lot. Okay, today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get, half a chapter done. That's it. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to get it done. You get it down on paper. That's a success. Tomorrow, I'm going to do the same thing. Today, I'm going to take this piece of art that I did and I'm going to transfer it to a different kind of medium and see what happens when I transfer it to a different medium. I'm going to take this painting and I'm going to convert it to video and I'm going to make it move like a cartoon. What have I learned? Today, I'm going to figure out, or I'm going to learn a little bit more about marketing and how to get it out there, and I'm going to learn how to get one person to say yes to me. I'm going to learn how to get one person to say yes to me. No matter what it is, I'm going to get one person to say yes to me, okay? You got to take these things really small. One of the things that derails people is they try to go from 0 to 60 and then they go, see, and then boom, it all collapses. It's like, well, I'm going to go from here to having, a $4 million house and everyone loving me. Well, there's some other things that are going on in between this and there. Okay, so you got to work to get small successes so that the belief builds higher and higher and higher. And then every time you have a success, the next time you come back with more belief, more potential, and then your actions are stronger and your results are better, and it gives you better belief. So you got to take these in small steps. In the I Ching, it talks about why fast success and success coming very quickly is dangerous and how easy it is to collapse. And for those of you who know the tarot, the Tower card shows you that. Okay, sometimes when you get very fast success, very big, the Tower hits, and then because you didn't take the time to make the foundation strong, the whole thing collapses. So it's important to do this in steps and to take steps in growing this around and around and around. Hey, if you would like to do a reading or your astrology chart where we look at this and how we can make this work better for you, contact me, 779-302-8009, or conjurehope@gmail.com. If you would like to get just a regular reading, same thing. If you would like to get your astrology chart done, your Tibetan Bon astrology chart done, and we can look for where the belief is off. What's probably happening is there's probably something going on in your magic squares that's influencing this. There's probably something going on in between the relationship between the animals in there, and there's a habitual pattern in there somewhere that's probably throwing you off. And the chart will show how to, it could be that there's a missing element. I've had people, for example, who they had all this passion, all this desire, all this, but they didn't have any way to channel it, is because they have no metal. There's all this fire and there's no metal. And without metal, they can't shape it, they can't, there's no boundaries. So there's a lot of people who like, they're very giving, they're very, you know, they're very emotional, and then people overstep, they have no boundaries. They have no boundaries. There's a waitress in a diner we go to all the time, and we were talking to her about her astrology, and she jokes, she says, I have absolutely no boundaries. And I said, I'm willing to bet you're all fire. And her chart is all fire. She's got like the majority, everything's fire. And she has no metal to create the boundaries that she needs. So it could simply be that if there's a lack of belief, that there's something off in the elements as well. There's a lot of ways that this can surface, but this is gold. So if you want to get your chart done, if you want to get a reading, if you want to take a class with me on how to read the tarot, the beginning or advanced, or how to read playing cards, or how to read Lenormand, or how to read crystal ball or Mexican Loteria, contact me 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. If you like these videos and they're giving you something to think about and you want to donate to help keep them running, I'm putting my PayPal, my Venmo below. Thank you to everyone who's donated. You guys are wonderful. And I think that's it. That's all I got to say today on the subject, and I hope that this made some sense to you. Please feel free to ask your questions below, or ask any other questions that you have. And I'm asking you, please subscribe and share these videos. With your help, it gets out bigger and bigger and bigger. I can reach more people. I can help more people, and change more lives.